An idiot booked a reservation, and then the lobby was quiet when she walked in. Late afternoon light poured through the glass doors, scattering across the polished tiles like spilled gold. The kind of day that looked calm from the outside, but anyone who's ever worked a hotel front desk knows better. Calm was a mirage. It was the quiet hum before someone's chaos inevitably spilled into your shift. I'd been in hospitality long enough to spot trouble the second it strutted through the door, and that woman, dragging a leopard print tote and holding her phone like a weapon, was pure trouble. Her name, we'll call her Carla, popped up on my reservation list under one of those sketchy third-party booking sites. Bookpedia price tell WTF. That alone should have been my first warning sign. The site was infamous in the hotel world. It sold half-truths dressed as deals. Guests thought they were getting a bargain, but what they really bought was confusion. And every single time it became our problem. Carla leaned against the counter, chewing her gum like it owed her money. Reservation under Carla M, she said, not even bothering with a hello. I smiled, the kind of polite, restrained smile hotel staff master after years of emotional endurance training. Of course, Ms. M, let's get you checked in. While I typed, she scanned the lobby. Her eyes darted toward the pool beyond the glass, sunlight glittering on the blue water, a perfect photo op waiting to happen. My kids are gonna love that pool, she said casually, almost to herself. I froze mid-keystroke. Your kids? She nodded, distracted, scrolling through her phone. Yeah, it's my son's birthday tomorrow. We're gonna have a little swim party. Oh, don't worry, we'll clean up after ourselves. I forced a breath. Ma'am, the pool is only for registered guests. Your reservation shows 2 adults, no children. She blinked at me like I'd just insulted her. Oh, I never changed that part. The site's annoying. I kept my tone steady. Unfortunately, we need accurate information for safety and insurance reasons. If you plan on having more guests, we'll need to book additional rooms. Her expression tightened. So you're saying I can't have my son's birthday here? I kept my smile polite, but my voice firm. You can if you book additional rooms for the number of guests attending. Otherwise, I can approve a cancellation for you through Bookpedia price tell if they call to confirm. She scoffed, crossing her arms. That's ridiculous. We're just using the pool. It's not like I'm bringing a marching band. I didn't bother explaining the insurance policy again. People like Carla didn't care about rules until they got caught breaking them. Instead, I handed her the registration card. Please review and sign here. It states that the pool and breakfast are for registered, paying guests only. She rolled her eyes but scribbled her name anyway, muttering something under her breath that I pretended not to hear. I handed her the keys. You're in room 212. Checkout is at 11 a.m. She snatched the cards and strutted away, her perfume trailing behind her like a toxic fog. I knew that was not the end of it. There's a particular kind of guest that treats hospitality staff like we're either invisible or enemies. Carla was the latter. About an hour later, I stepped out from the office to refill the coffee bar, and that's when I saw it. The pool area, once serene, was now a scene straight out of a daycare disaster movie. At least 10 people were splashing around, kids screaming, adults lounging, pizza boxes stacked on the tables. And right in the center of it, in her oversized sunglasses and sun hat, was Carla. I marched over, every step measured. Ma'am, I said calmly, these guests need to leave. The pool is for registered guests only. She turned slowly, as if I'd interrupted royalty. Oh, they're not staying here, she said airily. They're just visiting. Then they can't be here, I replied, maintaining composure even as my pulse quickened. She tilted her head and smiled, a sugary, sarcastic smile. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know them. I stared at her. You don't know them? She shrugged. They just showed up. Behind her, one of the kids yelled, Mom, watch me jump. Carla froze. My lips twitched. Not a smile, not yet. Your son? I asked quietly. She sighed, finally dropping the act. You're being really unfair, you know. It's his birthday. I looked around at the soggy chaos, the dripping pizza boxes, the pool toys, the spilled soda, and fought the urge to laugh. Ma'am, I said softly, you signed the registration form yourself. It clearly states, yeah, whatever, she interrupted. You people just want to ruin everything. I paid for this room. I should get to use the pool how I want. At that moment, I realized something. She wasn't just entitled, she was dangerously self-righteous, the kind of guest who believed policies were personal attacks. I nodded slowly, stepping back. I understand, ma'am. I'll handle it. I walked back to the desk, my jaw tight, and called my manager. There are moments in customer service when patience isn't just a virtue, it's armor. And by the time I hung up the phone, I knew exactly what to do next. The pool party was over before she even knew what hit her. I've learned something over the years working front desk. The angrier the guest, the calmer you have to become. It's like a survival mechanism, and they scream, you smile. They lie, you document. They push, and you gently push back with policy, knowing the system is always on your side if you play it right. So when I saw Carla storming back toward the lobby, wet flip-flops slapping against the tile, sunglasses perched on her head like a battle crown, I was already ready for her. I had the registration form pulled up on my screen, the one with her signature at the bottom. She marched right up to the counter. What's your problem? She snapped. You just ruined my son's birthday. I looked up from the computer, voice level, calm. Ma'am, I didn't ruin anything. I reminded you of the policy you signed at check-in. The pool is for registered guests only. She threw her arms up. But they were guests. They came to see me. I clasped my hands together on the counter. Visiting guests are welcome in your room, ma'am, but not in the pool area or for breakfast. That's company policy. Her face flushed red. That's ridiculous. Every hotel lets guests use the pool. I smiled. Not this one. She glared at me like I'd just kicked her puppy. You people think you're so high and mighty because you work in a hotel? I'm paying good money to be here. I nodded, unfazed. Yes, ma'am, for 2 adults. No children. That stopped her. What? I turned the monitor slightly so she could see. Your reservation Reservation says 2 adults, no children. She frowned, squinting. Well, yeah, but that's just how the website fills it out. I never changed that part. I paused, slowly, deliberately, letting that statement hang in the air like a confession. So, you're saying you knowingly entered inaccurate information on your reservation? Her eyes widened. What? No! I raised an eyebrow, still calm. Because if that's the case, ma'am, then you've violated the booking terms. That's a serious issue with Bookpedia price tell. She faltered. I could practically see the gears turning, her outrage now tempered by the sudden realization that she might have gone too far. But still, she doubled down. Look, I didn't know it mattered, okay? I'm just trying to celebrate my kid's birthday. I nodded empathetically, and I completely understand that, which is why I offered earlier to approve a cancellation if Bookpedia price tell calls us directly. You could have found another hotel that allows parties. Her voice rose again, sharper now. I don't want to cancel. I want to stay. You're just being difficult. I looked at her, calm, patient, detached. Ma'am, I'm following policy. You agreed to it. That's not me being difficult. That's me doing my job. Behind her, a couple waiting to check in tried not to stare, but their eyes darted between us like spectators at a tennis match. Carla noticed, and that only fueled her fury. You know what? This is discrimination, she suddenly shouted. You're treating me unfairly because I have kids. That one made me laugh, not out loud, but deep down, where the absurdity of customer service lives rent-free. I'd heard every accusation in the book, but anti-kid discrimination was a new one. I leaned in slightly. Ma'am, it's not discrimination to enforce a safety rule. The pool has a maximum capacity, and only registered guests are covered under our insurance policy. If one of your children were to get hurt, oh, don't give me that, she cut in. You're just power tripping. You think because you're behind that desk you can tell people what to do. I gave her my best corporate smile, the one that says, I've been cursed at before, and I'll be cursed at again. Ma'am, I said softly, I'm just here to make sure everyone stays safe and happy, including you. For a moment, I thought she'd back down, but then she huffed, snatched her key cards off the counter, and spat. You'll regret this. I'm calling corporate. I nodded. Please do. They'll tell you the same thing I just did. She spun on her heel and stormed off, the automatic doors hissing open like a curtain closing on the first act of a very stupid play. The rest of the day was quiet, mostly. I checked in a few business travelers, handled some housekeeping requests, and made a mental note to document everything. Later that evening, as I was finishing a report, I caught sight of movement near the pool cameras. The monitor flickered, and there she was again, Carla, sneaking. 10 minutes before closing, she had crept back in, towel over her arm, one of the kids trailing behind her like a mini sidekick. She glanced around, checking if anyone was watching, then unlocked the pool door with her keycard. I sighed, picked up the phone, and dialed my manager. Hey, guess who's back in the pool after hours? There was a long pause on the other end, followed by a tired chuckle. Of course she is. All right, go ahead and lock her out of the system. We'll flag her profile. By the time I walked to the pool, she was standing in the shallow end, arms crossed, glaring at me like I was trespassing. Ma'am, I said evenly, the pool closes at 10. She splashed water in frustration. You're obsessed with rules. You need to relax. I tilted my head. And you need to pack up. You're checking out tomorrow morning. Her jaw dropped. You can't do that. I smiled, small, quiet, but full of restrained satisfaction. Actually, ma'am, we can. And for the first time all day, she was speechless. The next morning, the air in the lobby had that strange calm before a storm. You could feel it. The kind that hums behind fluorescent lights and freshly brewed coffee. The housekeeper on duty gave me a knowing look as she passed. Room 214? She whispered. I nodded. She's still here? Hasn't checked out. Said she's staying another night. I smiled faintly. Not anymore. I pulled up the file again. Carla J. 2 adults, no children, third-party booking. Everything was there. Timestamps, notes, security footage references, and the after-hours pool entry from last night. It was the kind of airtight documentation that made a manager proud. My general manager, Paul, walked in around 9 a.m. He was the kind of man who'd seen it all, from wedding parties setting off sprinklers to drunk businessmen trying to swim in the lobby fountain. When I told him about Carla, he didn't even look surprised. Another one of those guests, huh? He muttered, sipping his coffee. Let's finish it. He called her room from the back office, putting the phone on speaker. Good morning, Ms. Carla, he said pleasantly. This is Paul, the general manager. I understand there's been a misunderstanding about our policies. Her voice came through the receiver, sharp and defensive. Misunderstanding? Your employee harassed me. I'm calling corporate and the Better Business Bureau. Paul leaned back in his chair, completely unbothered. I'm sorry to hear that. We've reviewed the situation, and unfortunately, due to multiple policy violations, including unregistered guests and use of amenities after hours, we'll have to ask you to vacate by noon today. You can't do that, she barked. I paid for another night. No, ma'am, he replied evenly. You paid for this night, and we're refunding the remainder. The booking agency will confirm. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, like a snake hissing through the line, she spat, You'll regret this. Paul smiled faintly. I doubt it. But please return your key cards to the desk before you leave. He hung up. We sat there for a second, quiet, until he turned to me and said, Let's flag her. Full DNR. For anyone outside the hotel industry, DNR means do not rent. It's basically exile. Once you're on that list, you can't book again. Not at our chain, not through our third-party partners. It's a quiet, satisfying form of poetic justice. I opened the internal guest system, scrolled to her profile, and typed the note slowly. Deliberately, guest flagged for misconduct. Unauthorized guests in pool area. Violation of occupancy policy, verbal abuse toward staff, refused to comply with management instructions. Do not rent. All future reservations require managerial approval. Then I hit save. Just like that, Carla's hotel career was over. Around 11 7:30, she came stomping down the hallway with her kids in tow. Her hair was a mess, sunglasses back in battle position. She slammed the key cards onto the counter so hard one of them slid off and hit the floor. "I hope you're proud of yourself," she snapped. "You ruined my son's birthday trip." I met her eyes, calm, unshaken. "I'm sorry it turned out this way, ma'am. Safe travels." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, I'll be writing a review. Everyone's gonna know how rude you people are." I nodded. "That's your right." And that was it. She turned and stormed out the front doors, dragging her kids behind her like luggage she didn't want. The automatic doors closed with a soft whoosh, and for the first time in 2 days, the lobby felt light again. A week later, I was finishing a late shift when a familiar ping echoed from my computer. A guest review notification. The title made me laugh out loud. "Rude front desk clerk ruined my vacation." I clicked it open. Worst hotel ever. Front desk lady had a power trip and kicked us out for using the pool. My kids were traumatized. "Don't stay here unless you like being bullied." It was textbook Karen energy. The all caps, the guilt trip, the melodrama. I almost closed the tab when I noticed something strange. At the bottom, under her username, was a gray tag. "User account suspended. Multiple fraudulent reviews." I blinked, then laughed. Turns out, Carla had gone on a rampage, posting fake 1-star reviews across half a dozen hotels. The booking platform's algorithm caught her pattern and permanently banned her account. Corporate even sent us a short email. "Thank you for your thorough documentation. Your team's professionalism helped identify a repeat violator. Please note, this guest is now blacklisted from our system." Paul printed it and pinned it to the staff corkboard with a sticky note that said, "Nice work, team." The staff started calling it the birthday ban. That night, as I was locking up, I stood at the window and looked out at the empty pool. The water was still, glowing faintly under the blue lights. It hit me then, how many times this place had seen people like her. Guests who thought a reservation was a throne, that staff were beneath them. But the truth, the system always remembers. Every name, every incident, every rule broken, logged, time-stamped, preserved. In the end, the universe doesn't always serve justice right away, but hospitality software usually does. I shut off the monitor, turned off the lobby lights, and whispered to no one in particular, "Sleep well, Carla, wherever you're not staying tonight." About 6 months passed. By then, the birthday ban had become a sort of legend among the staff. Anytime a difficult guest showed up, someone would inevitably mutter, "Careful, that's another Carla in the making." It became shorthand for chaos, the name you whispered when you saw a stroller army coming toward the lobby. Had almost forgotten about her when I transferred to our sister property across town, a larger hotel with fancier decor, an indoor pool, and unfortunately, doubled the drama. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a promotion even. New faces, new lobby, same endless parade of human weirdness. It was a Friday evening in early summer, one of those nights where everything seemed to hit at once. We were fully booked. A wedding party had taken over the conference hall and the phones wouldn't stop ringing. I was juggling 2 walk-ins, a complaint about noisy neighbors, and a printer jam when I saw her. At first, I didn't believe it. She walked through the glass doors like she owned the place, sunglasses on, purse slung tight under one arm, phone in hand, still talking at full volume, the same platinum hair, the same overdone makeup, the same air of "the rules don't apply to me." I froze for half a second. My brain whispered, "No way, not again." But then she stepped up to the counter, slapped her phone down and said, "Hi, I have a reservation under Carla J." I smiled slowly. Of course you do. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? People like her never remember the faces of the ones they belittle. But I remembered her voice, her attitude, her pool full of uninvited guests. I checked the system. Sure enough, the red banner appeared at the top of her profile like a flare in the dark. "Do not rent, guest misconduct." My pulse quickened. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to see how this would play out. I looked up. It seems there's an issue with your reservation, Ms. J." She frowned. "Issue? What do you mean?" "I booked through staysnow.com. It's confirmed." I nodded politely. "Yes, I can see that. However," I leaned in slightly, "your account is flagged by our system for prior misconduct. It looks like we won't be able to honor your booking tonight." Her mouth dropped open. "What, misconduct? That's insane. I've never done anything wrong in my life." I didn't flinch. "The note says otherwise, ma'am." She laughed. That sharp, incredulous laugh people use when they think they're above consequence. "This is ridiculous. I'll call the manager." "I am the manager on duty." Her laughter stopped. "Well then, you need to fix it." "I'm afraid I can't." For a moment, there was silence, thick and cold. She just stared at me, probably realizing this wasn't going her way. Then she leaned forward, lowering her voice to a venomous hiss. "You know, I could ruin your career with one bad review." I met her gaze. "Funny. That's exactly what you said the last time." She blinked. Confusion flickered in her eyes. "The last time?" "Yeah," I said softly. "The birthday pool party? 10 unregistered guests. Remember that?" Her face went pale. Her lips parted like she wanted to deny it, but the memory hit her before the words could form. She stammered. "You worked at the other property." I smiled faintly. "That's right. Small world, isn't it?" Her voice rose. "You people are unbelievable. This is harassment." "Actually, ma'am," I said calmly, "it's policy. You were placed on our DNR list after multiple violations. I'm just following procedure." She stood there trembling, trying to come up with something to say. The guests behind her were starting to stare. Finally, she snatched her phone off the counter and hissed, "I'll never stay at your hotels again." I smiled wider. "I know." She stormed out, pushing past a couple who had just arrived. The glass doors swung shut behind her with a satisfying hiss. The silence that followed was perfect. Later that night, I sat in the back office scrolling through the security footage. Carla's angry exit looped on the screen like a victory reel. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her own arrogance had created a digital trail that followed her everywhere she went. There's something almost poetic about that. How technology has become become the universe's new form of karma. You don't need cosmic justice anymore, just a Wi-Fi connection and a shared database. Still, as I watched the footage one more time, I felt a strange flicker of pity. People like her, they never learn. They just keep burning bridges until they're standing alone in the ashes, wondering why no one wants them around. I turned off the monitor and leaned back in my chair, letting out a long breath. Working in hospitality teaches you something most people never understand. It's not just about service. It's about patience, the kind that costs you sleep, sanity, and sometimes your faith in humanity. But when you see justice land, even quietly, even digitally, it makes all the long nights worth it. As I locked up for the night, I passed the pool on my way out. The lights shimmered across the surface, quiet, empty, peaceful. For the first time in a long time, I smiled, not out of spite, but out of relief. Because in this business, you learn something powerful. Karma might take its time, but hotel software, it never forgets. A year passed after the Carla sequel, and by then I'd seen it all. Entitled guests, impossible requests, tears over non-refundable deposits. The circus never stopped. But something in me had changed. I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was observing. There's a strange clarity that comes from serving people day after day, like standing behind a pane of glass while the rest of the world rushes by. You start to see patterns. The way arrogance disguises itself as confidence. The way guilt hides behind excuses. And the way karma, slow and patient, always finds its opening. I'd learned not to take it personally, or at least I thought I had. Then, one ordinary afternoon, karma came knocking again. It was mid-July, blistering heat, the kind that makes asphalt shimmer like water. The hotel was nearly full and we were running on fumes. My team was swapping shifts when a new reservation came in through the online system. Last minute, one night, prepaid. The name didn't catch my eye at first. Carla Jennings. No, it couldn't be. I opened the file and froze. Same date of birth. Same email, only now with an extra 2 tacked on the end. Same address, same credit card. She'd tried to outsmart the system by changing just enough to slip through the filters. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the monitor. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I wanted to laugh or sigh. She was back, the unrelenting ghost of guest misconduct. So I did something I hadn't done before. I didn't cancel it. I approved it. When she arrived that evening, she was different. The hair was darker, cut shorter. She wore glasses now, more understated makeup. There was a nervous energy in her that hadn't been there before, like someone trying to be on their best behavior. Good evening, I greeted, careful not to reveal recognition. Checking in, she nodded quickly. Yes, reservation for Jennings. Her tone was polite, too polite. She handed me her ID and card, eyes darting around the lobby like she was afraid to make a wrong move. I smiled softly. Of course. Welcome back. Her eyes flickered just slightly. She heard it, the word back, but she said nothing. I handed her the key card. You're in 214. Pool access closes at 10. She hesitated before taking it. Oh, I won't be using the pool. A small, ironic smile tugged at my lips. That's probably best. She looked up, studying me, and in that moment, I saw it. Recognition. The faint glimmer of memory that tightened her expression. She knew who I was. Still, she didn't say anything, just nodded and walked away. That night, I couldn't help but check the security feed. There she was, alone in her room, sitting by the window, staring out at the parking lot. No loud guests, no drama, no phone calls, just silence. It was almost sad. The next morning, when she came down to check out, she looked tired. Her voice trembled a bit as she said, "Everything was fine, thank you." I nodded, glad to hear it. She hesitated before leaving, then said softly, "People change, you know." I didn't respond, not because I disagreed, but because for the first time, I believed her. After she left, I pulled up her file one last time. The system still showed the DNR flag, but this time, I clicked request review. I didn't remove it. I just sent it up the chain for evaluation. Maybe she deserved that small chance to prove she wasn't the same person anymore. For weeks, I thought about it, about how easily resentment can rot you from the inside, about how much energy it takes to hold on to a grudge, and about how sometimes the best revenge isn't punishment, it's peace. That lesson didn't come easy. Working front desk teaches you patience, but it also tempts you with vengeance. When you deal with rudeness every day, being cruel back feels like justice. But the truth? It never makes you lighter. It just makes you quieter in the wrong way. Months later, I got the corporate notification. Flag reviewed and removed. Guest eligible for future stays. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I smiled. Not for her, but for me. Because I realized something then. I wasn't angry anymore. The same woman who once screamed in my lobby now walked through life carrying her own quiet regret. And me? I had walked out of her story, untouched by her chaos. There's a certain beauty in that. The kind that doesn't make noise, doesn't gloat, doesn't need to be seen. Just a quiet truth whispered in the hum of the front desk printer. You can't outsmart karma, but you can outgrow it. Years have passed since then. I don't work the front desk anymore. I moved into a different part of hospitality. Management training, guest relations, the behind-the-scenes stuff. No ringing phones, no angry voices echoing down the marble floors. Just systems, policies, and people learning how to deal with other people. But even now, sometimes when I walk past a lobby, hear the soft chime of a bell, or smell that faint blend of coffee, perfume, and chlorine, I feel that same quiet ache in my chest. The one that reminds me of the faces that used to stand on the other side of that counter. The kind ones, the cruel ones, the broken ones pretending not to be. And of course, people like her, Carla. You never really forget the ones who test your limits. They become landmarks in your memory, reminders of the exact point you stopped reacting and started understanding. Funny thing is, she ended up teaching me something I never expected, that sometimes the villains in your story are just people who never learned what accountability feels like. And if you're not careful, they can turn you into one too. I used to replay that night in my head, her face when I told her she was banned, the fury, the disbelief. It used to make me feel powerful, like I'd I'd won, like I'd finally gotten justice for every underpaid, overworked employee who'd ever been screamed at by someone who thought the customer is always right. But the truth? Justice isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's just about walking away without carrying their bitterness on your back. One afternoon not long ago, I was at a hospitality conference, a gathering for people in the industry. They had workshops about customer relations, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, all the buzzwords that sound nice in training videos but mean something completely different when you've lived them. I was sitting near the back of the hall when the guest speaker took the stage. She was introduced as a motivational consultant who worked with companies to improve guest experience and emotional safety in the workplace. And when she stepped up to the microphone, my breath caught. It was her, Carla. Different name now, Carla Jensen, not Jennings. The hair darker still, cut shorter, the smile more genuine, but the eyes unmistakable. She began to speak about her past mistakes in customer service, about the time she let anger define her reputation, and how it took years to rebuild her name. She didn't mention me or the hotel or any specific incident, but I could hear it between her words. The echo of that lobby, the sting of her own humiliation, the years it must have taken to turn that shame into purpose. I sat there, completely still. Half of me wanted to laugh. The other half wanted to applaud, because somehow the woman who once screamed over pool access was now on stage teaching others about empathy. The irony was poetic. When the session ended, people lined up to shake her hand. I stayed in my seat. I didn't want to be another ghost from her past or a reminder of who she used to be. But as she packed up her notes, she glanced toward the back, and for the briefest moment, our eyes met. There was no shock this time. No fear, just quiet recognition. She smiled. A small, almost humble smile. And I nodded back. That was it. No grand apology, no dramatic reunion, just two people who had once stood on opposite sides of a counter, now meeting again on equal ground. Later that night, I walked out onto the hotel balcony and the air warm, city lights flickering below, and thought about everything that had come full circle. It's strange, isn't it? How some stories start with anger and end in grace. How sometimes the people who cause your worst days also end up teaching you your best lessons. I used to think my job was about hospitality, about check-ins, clean rooms, and polite smiles. But now I know it's about something deeper. It's about patience, forgiveness, the quiet strength it takes to not mirror the chaos around you. Because there will always be another difficult guest, another unfair complaint, another moment where you want to shout back. But you learn, you grow. And one day, you realize the sweetest revenge isn't karma, it's peace. That night, I stood on that balcony and whispered to myself, almost laughing, don't mess with karma. It doesn't yell, it just waits. Then I turned back toward the conference hall, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Closure. Not the dramatic kind you tell stories about, but the kind that settles quietly in your chest, like the end of a long, exhausting shift where you finally clock out, breathe, and realize you made it through, and maybe, just maybe, so did she.